If you left the last lesson thinking, wow, there has to be a better way, well, you're right. In the last lesson, we were adding items to the end of the array, and it wasn't really a great way to do it. We were able to do it because we were able to get the length, but it wasn't ideal. So you don't want to have this kind of mess here, and you also want different ways if you want to remove items from the last element. So you want some capabilities here, and that's where arrays have built-in methods. And these can be very powerful and really super useful within your coding. So let's comment some of this stuff out here. We'll work with the same array that we had earlier. We'll just do a block comment there to get rid of that stuff. Avoid all of that confusion. And if I want to add something at the end of the array, there's actually a built-in method for it. So I need to specify the array and then the method, just as we saw with the alert and so on, that there's these built-in methods in JavaScript, and they are really helpful. So we do our myArray, so we identify the array that we want to push an item into. So if you think about it, yes, we are pushing something into it. And let's just push test. And also I'm going to console log out myArray. So we don't always have to keep writing it there in the console. So let's refresh, and wow, there we go. We added it to the end. So that was great. There's also some other options as well. So if you were to assign a variable to this push, this is actually really cool and probably underused within coding. So let's let's do value 1. And for this one, we're actually going to do the push. And then we'll console log out whatever's contained within value 1 as well. So let's refresh. And we've got a value of 5 that's contained within there. And what's happening here is that we were pushing it in, and it's returning back the index value where it's falling in. So where we push an item in, it's returning back the value that we've pushed it. So now it's 6, now it's 7, now it's 8. So that's the item that's falling into the array, not the index value, because the index values are different. So keep that in mind as well. So we can also remove that item from the end of the array. So we can do something, and I'm not going to do it within a variable, but you get the point that it actually returns back a value. Actually, I will do it within this one so that we can get a better sense. So value 2, and in this case, I'm going to do a pop. And we don't actually have to indicate which item we're removing. It just removes out the last one. So it's not looking for a parameter. And then we're going to get our variable 2. So we see that we're getting that test returned. Because in this case, it's added. So the first one, value 1, is pushing it. So it's adding it to the end of the array. So it's incrementing it to the last item index there. So it's returning back the length. And then over here, when we pop it, which is always fun to do, we pop it off the end of it and we return back that value. So now it's not sitting in the array anymore, it's gone. We can also remove out values from the front of the array. So let's do that one. And you don't always have to set up a variable for it. You can just use that myArray and then the method that you want to use. So in this case, what I want to do is I want to shift, and this is going to remove it from the front of the array. Let's try that, and now let's take a look at our array, and we've moved out that first item with shift. And I know it's not as much fun as saying push and pop. There's also another one as well, what if we wanted to add it to the front of the array, so that's an option as well. So that one is unshift, so the opposite of shift is unshift, and let's just type in first here. So we're going to add that in, refresh, and we can see that first now is added into the front of the array. And there really is a ton of things that you can do with the array methods. You can also find out a particular index value. So we've got our array here. And let's say, for instance, we want to find out where first is located or where specus is located. So how do we do that? We can grab the myArray, so indicate which array that we want to use. And then we can use index of. And this is where we specify that value that we're looking for. So essentially the needle that we're looking for, and we see it's being returned back index 1. So that also means that we can take a look at it and we can output it as index 1. And the same thing goes for any value. So if we want to find another value, so let's say we want to find out which one has a value of 30, we see that index 2 gets returned back there. We also have an option to sort arrays where we can grab that array method again and we can do a sort. And what sort does is it's going to sort the values of the array. So the numbers are going to be first and then alphabetical and then the booleans last. We can also do a reverse as well. So that's another option that's available for us, which is a reverse method. And that's going to essentially reverse the sort. So with sort goes one way, reverse does it the other way. We can also pull out a specific item depending on its index value. So if we want to pull back and if we want to pull out this particular item out of the array, we can do that as well. And I'm going to set that here within our values. And again, indicating which array that we want to access. And we're going to use the splice method. So basically it requires a few parameters, which is the starting position number. And that we can indicate through the index value. So if we want to start at index 1, we would indicate index 1. How many items we want to grab? Just one. And let's refresh. So let's see what the value of 4 is. We've grabbed that out of our array. And that's how you can pull out certain values right out of your array. So we didn't need to know the index value, or we did need to know the index value, but you saw with earlier when we were doing the index of, we were able to return back those values. So I know this does take some getting used to, and there is quite a few array items here listed. We'll go through our list quickly. And there's a great resource available at the Mozilla Developer Network. So they've got a listing of all the different array methods and the properties. We saw length, and we've seen some of these ones here. Some of these are a little bit more complex. We see that we've looked at reverse, we looked at push, pop. We also saw that we did the shift and then the unshift as well, splice. So this gives us a good overview of all the different methods that are available for us to use when it comes to arrays. So go ahead and check out what's available at the Mozilla Developer Network. Create an array, update the values in the array, play around with it, have some fun with it, and make some updates to it. Get familiar with the array methods.